I get discouraged for sure. And I will quit fighting at some point. And that point is when the first shovel of dirt hits the top of my box 6 feet down.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to COS Indiana Live. My name's Dale Parrish. I'm the virtual programming coordinator for the state of Indiana. And I want to welcome you to our broadcast tonight. We've got a jam-packed lineup for you this evening, and I'm going to quickly bring on my co-host, Mr. Ken Kashuba. Hello, Ken.
Oh, Dale, how are you?
Just fine, just fine. Good to see you, bud. Good to see you.
You too.
Well, Ken will be monitoring our the comments and question section. So if you're a viewer this evening, feel free at any time to log in the chat section, any comments or questions that you may have regarding the broadcast. So, and Ken will be monitoring those and will be bringing those to us when one comes on of particular interest. So Ken, I wanted to immediately get into showing everyone what we have lined up for this evening. And our first guest this evening will be Murray Edwards. Murray is the state director for Alabama, for Convention of States, and they have been experiencing a rescission effort. Alabama is a past state, just like Indiana. So thought we'd bring him on, Ken, and get his viewpoint and experience on with the rescission effort going on down there.
Important topic, yep.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's one that we are always concerned about as a past state. Our next interview will be a recorded interview that I did with our own Dr. Dan Stock on this new vaccine that's been in the news, the mRNA vaccine. So, Ken, I just thought anytime we have, news about any kind of vaccine, we need to go to our expert, and right, and we know Dr. Dan Stock is the expert that we go back to frequently.
Yep, have to rely on Dr. Dan to keep us sharp and ready for what's coming next.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
Now, those will kind of be the national issues that we're going to address tonight. Then we're going to shift to what's going on here in Indiana. And we have with us tonight John Holmes. John is a constitutional coach, Patriot Academy trained constitutional coach. And we have a number of these here in Indiana, and I've been wanting to get one on and talk to us about what he does as a constitutional coach, why he wanted to become one, so on, so on. So we're fortunate that we've got John Holmes on this evening as a constitutional coach.
Interesting.
Time permitting, we'll tune in to a couple of our contributors. Of course, Maringo Mike has been a COS Indiana Live contributor for some time.
He likes bat and cleanup, by the way, Dale. So
he is that right?
Yeah, he likes bat and cleanup. You know.
Oh, does he? Okay.
Yeah, he likes to hit the fourth spot. So yeah, that's good.
All right. And then we have now a new contributor, our state director, Dale Tipton. Has gotten into the habit and into the mode of creating these videos. So we're going to start out with his contributor segment called Dale's Directives. and we'll bring him on. He's got a little short video on some experience and some opinions on the FBI. And
Sounds like a
Dale's
great lineup.
Good
Sounds
source.
Like a great lineup. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So we got a great lineup tonight. So without further ado, let's get into our very first interview, and let's bring Murray on. Hello, Murray. Murray, got you muted.
Let's unmute Murray.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Bill. Ken, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing wonderful, thank you.
Doing fine. Murray, let me get the notes up here that we wanted to talk to you about. Sure. Now, Murray, as I mentioned, for goodness sakes, let me get my. Okay, yeah, we got Murray Edwards. Now, Murray, and as I mentioned, you're the state director in Alabama.
Correct.
The state of Alabama. Here they got pretty good football teams down there.
At least on one side of the state.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
It's toward where you grew up. If you go down I-65, you're on the west side of the state. Typically, you're a T-town person. If you're on the east side of 65, then you're a Tiger. But sometimes we intermix.
Which side are you on?
I grew up during the Bear Bryant era.
Oh, did you?
I will most always be a Alabama fan. Now, the nice thing about it, I have mellowed in my older years, where I was an obnoxious Alabama fan when I was growing up. I now, if Alabama doesn't have a chance, then I will occasionally pull for the team on the other side of the state, the Auburn Tigers, because you always want one of your teams from your state to at least represent you in the SEC championship or maybe in the national title.
But, okay, well, this is not what we wanted to talk about tonight.
I understand, but don't get us started on football down here in the South.
I did this. I started this, didn't I? Okay, all right. Murray, when did you're a past state? When did Alabama become a past state?
Alabama passed back in May 21st of 2015.
2015.
Yes, sir.
And when we say a past state, that means they passed the
correct
COS resolution.
Correct.
And it same as Indiana. Indiana was number 6, and you were
number 4.
Number 4. Okay. All right.
We're one of the legs of the table.
Okay. All right. Tell us, the reason we got you on here tonight is because there was a rescission effort. There was an effort underway to rescind that resolution. Am I right? Is that what it was?
That is correct. That is correct.
And I think you told me before that, hey, you killed it, right?
We did. Absolutely did.
It's the good news.
That's good. That's good.
They won't stop. They're already gearing up for next session. So,
well, tell us. You might as well get into who instigated this and how.
Sure. Typically, it comes from the John Birch Society, and sometimes they will team up with Eagle Forum to a lesser degree. Here in our state, Eagle Forum's got a little bit better name recognition than John Birch. So what they'll do is John Birch will write up the amendment or the resolution to rescind, and they go after all Article 5. So they don't just necessarily pick on us; they're picking on all Article 5 resolutions that they've passed. And here in Alabama, we have 13. But typically, what they'll do is at the first of a new quintennial, which we have a 4-year session here or 4-year term for our senators and representatives, they'll go out and try to find a freshman representative and a freshman senator, do a little bit of brainwashing on them, and then try to convince them to put a resolution in. And that's exactly what they did this year. They picked a freshman out of North Alabama, a freshman representative out of North Alabama, and they picked a freshman senator out of the center part of the state to put the resolution in. And they were a little sneaky this year. And usually we have wins that it's coming, but this year they just slid it in with about 10 days left in the session, hoping that it would slide through. But
Really?
we were able to catch it, and fortunately, we still have good support here in the state at both the House and the state House level and the Senate level, and we did a little reining on a couple of people, if I should say. Tried to embarrass them a little bit, try to hold them accountable, and fortunately, it was never able to get out of committee in the House and never able to get out of committee in the Senate, so therefore it died.
Murray, tell us. I know you've got a lot of experience with JBS.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that they briefly? What is it that they oppose? I mean, what is it that they stand for?
Well, here the argument that they put forward every year is that we should still be under the Articles of the Confederation, that the Constitution was created by a con or a runaway convention, that the delegates did not have the authority to write the Constitution, so therefore it's not legal. So that's their main argument all the time. And sometimes they'll get some people and they'll convince them that our Constitution is not valid. The funny thing about it is, they tell people to support the Constitution. Article 5 is in the Constitution,
Right.
but they don't want to support the second piece of Article 5.
Right.
And so that's how we usually spin it when we get door to door, face to face, I guess I should say, with someone who's questioning that you took an oath of office to protect the Constitution. It's in the Constitution, so therefore how can it be something that's not legal?
Yeah, I think that I think you mentioned to me that they also focus in on the possibility of a runaway convention if it ever happens, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Those are the three things. And
yeah.
I've seen they've presented the same resolution. This is their third attempt here in Alabama to rescind the articles. And it's typically the same resolution. Here in our state, we've got a lot of new bodies down at the State House, 28 new representatives and 2 new senators. So it flushes out. We started with 99 supporters when the bill passed. And overall, I think we're down to about 30 when you add the House and the Senate together. We've had a good many of our supporters and sponsors and co-sponsors have retired. And a new breed of representative are coming in. And the key thing that has to be done with that new batch is to get to know them and educate them on the process of what Article 5 is, how it's laid out, how it's laid out in the Constitution, and try to curb some of the nonsense that JBS tries to put out there. Eagle Forum is usually pretty quiet. It's the argument is being pushed by JBS here in our area anyhow. It may be different in other parts of the country.
So the best way to ward off rescission efforts is educating the legislators.
Get to know them, get to know them as best you can. Create teams across your state that can go sit down and talk with them. We did 25 town halls last year. We invited representatives to come. Some did, most didn't, because they were either on a Friday or Saturday and they had better things to do. But we've sort of broke the state up into corridors, I guess you might want to say. Mm-hmm. And I have 1 or 2 people in each one of the corridors who fans out to try to get with the folks that we can get with. Now we have one zone that it's useless because that is a stronghold for JBS, and they probably have one in every state. Here in Alabama, it's down in the Mobile area, and it's hard to break through in that area. But the rest of the state is pretty good. It's pretty good. But you got to get to know them. You got to get to know the leadership of the House and the Senate. If you don't, then they can slide things in. Try to know who's on the committees. When the resolution comes in, it goes to a committee hearing. Find out who's on those committee hearings and try to get an audience with them. and
Yeah.
talk with them and educate them.
Yeah.
I've proposed this year with so many new bodies to have study groups around the state with representatives and senators during the downtime. And I'm waiting to hear back now from the Senate leadership and the House leadership to see whether we can, coordinate something like that together.
I'll tell you, my experience with new legislators, it's amazing how little they know about the Constitution, and especially Article 5, and how little they know that we are a state that's passed the resolution.
Yep.
So
they have more things on their. They have typically, Dale. They have more things on their mind.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what's new in the zoo, and that's why I'm saying they JBS try to find a freshman,
Sure,
somebody who doesn't know anything about it.
Sure.
And what it ends up doing is hurting the reputation of that representative or senator who brings it forward. This guy said, well, I didn't want to bring anything forward this year that was too controversial. Whoa, wait a minute. We have 45,000 people here in the state of Alabama who have signed a petition for a rural state. We've got about 1% of the overall population that have signed the petition. Yeah, you're going to start something controversial, whether you know it or not.
Right.
And so we're able, like I said, able to fend it off. They'll come at us again, I'm sure, next year, and we're already laying out our strategy for the downtime.
All right, Murray, thank you very much for coming on, giving us that update. Congratulations on the effort that you all put out in your team to ward off that rescission effort. So, thank you very much, Murray.
Hope y'all have a great evening.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Murray. Yep, great. Thank you.
All right, Ken, let's move on. Next on our list is my interview with Dr. Dan Stock on the mRNA vaccine. So let me get going on that.
We're gonna go from the pan. We're gonna go from the pan to the fire, huh? Okay.
Yes, we are.
All right.
And I'm going to go to a full screen here, so Ken and I will disappear, but we're still here. Okay.
All right.
Well, greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, former state director, now with the COS Indiana Live Comms team. And I don't know about you, but my attention has been drawn to, as far as national issues go, been drawn to, the debt ceiling, the Durham report, what's going on, with the FBI and so on and so forth. And lo and behold, the issue of vaccines continues to lurk out there. And we now have a new one that has come to my attention. And, and I thought, well, this issue of vaccines could be an issue that we will be dealing with forever from time to time. And I thought, well, now this is a new one. And let me show you what I'm talking about here. This is called the mRNA vaccine. And like I said, to me, this is a new issue, a new vaccine that has just popped up as part of the overall COVID-19 effort going on in our country and this world. And I thought, who would be the best person to talk to about this? And I decided, well, let's go to our resident Convention of States vaccine expert, and that is our own Dr. Dan Stock. So let me bring Dan on, and let's have a conversation with Dan, and he can hopefully educate us on what the mRNA vaccine is all about. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Dale.
Dan, I tried my best to introduce you here as our resident expert. You've been involved in this vaccine issue from almost the very first day, haven't you? I mean, you've done a lot and still do a lot, right?
Yeah, I read very thoroughly on this. I started reading about it when they even before the vaccine came out, when they told me how it was going to work. I was like, oh, that can't go right. and so it's, yeah, I'm very well versed on the vaccines, what they've done, and even the research. I read backwards on the research. It was done before these were brought out for humans, what the animal studies were showing, and feel pretty comfortable speaking with this about this subject.
Well, Dan, I know you were I can remember back when you first made some presentations back during the COVID days, and that led to presentations at school boards and even on national TV on various programs, Tucker Carlson and some others. So I know you've been involved in this for some time now, and so tell us. I don't know where to start on this for sure, but how about we start with, what does mRNA stand for?
So the M stands for messenger. The RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. So rather than do that out, what people need to know is how things are coded in your cells. So the code for every protein is contained in DNA. And that code, when you want to make the protein it codes for, they make an RNA copy of the code. And that is what we call messenger RNA. We do other things with RNA besides make copies of codes, but messenger RNA is a copy of a code. That mRNA then goes out to the part of the cell which actually puts proteins together, and it reads the code and puts all the amino acids in the right sequence to make that protein. What's been done with these mRNA shots, and I want to stress these really are not vaccines. By no definition can they be called vaccines. But what these shots
that's very interesting. Just that point alone, how the term can be so misleading, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember what vaccine comes from is from Dr. Jenner, who was taking cowpox, which is similar to smallpox, but not as virulent. And so what he was doing was giving people an intact infectious thing that was kind of like the junior varsity team, so your immune system could practice on it and then get good when the real pros showed up. Well, this actually is nothing like that, because it's not really causing an infection at all. They don't function in that way for the immune system. The idea behind this was what we've always done before with vaccines. We either gave you the intact pathogen and let it give you an infection, but we'd weaken it, or we would give you part of the pathogen and just put it in between your cells and let your immune system find it there and say, oh, that's bad, I think I'll react to it. For the first time, what we said is what we're going to do is take these things called lipid nanoparticles, which is basically, if you would, antifreeze with a little piece of mRNA inside of it. And these very small little particles go you put them in the arm, only 20% stays in the arm. 80% of it's going throughout to all of the organs of the body, principally the lymphoid organs of the spleen, liver, and intestine, followed by the brain, heart, and the human ovary. The guys who get the most of it. And now what happens is these little nanoparticles actually put a piece of mRNA into your cell, and they let them make a protein that comes from the pathogen. So now for the first time, it's not in between all your cells. Your cell is actually making this protein. So why is that a problem? Well, we all have this gland here in the top of our chest called the thymus gland. And your white blood cells that run immunity, they all grow up in the thymus gland, at least most of them. The ones who run the show grow up there. And in the thymus gland, they are presented every protein that your body has a code for. And any of those white blood cells that has learned to respond to something you have coded for is killed off. That's why you don't attack your own cells. So the only guys who come out are guys who are designed to find anything that's not in your genes and destroy it. But now all of a sudden you have one of your cells starts making a protein that the immune system says, hey, you're not supposed to be making that. That's not one of my genes. And it goes and it attacks the cell that's making it. Now, that's what happens when a virus gets into your cell, that it goes and destroys it. So, if you do that in a throat cell, all right, like measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. Measles, mumps, rubella, they get into your respiratory system. Right. Yeah, we make new cells in the throat and the lung all day long, no problem. Problem is there are certain tissues that we're not good at remaking stuff on. Brain, heart, we're really bad at making new brain and heart. Ovary, we can't make any new there.
Yeah.
So now these particles go in there and you start to have your own tissues make something that your immune system is going to learn to react to and go destroy. So it will destroy tissue you can't replace. And that is an obligate thing that must happen with every dose.
Now that's a bad thing. That's what we don't want to happen, right?
As a matter of fact, most of us are pretty sure this is going to, infertility's down all across the world right now.
Yeah.
We know it destroys ovary cells, so that's not coming back. You can never get those things back. Premature menopause is a guarantee. It must happen. Heart cells will be damaged. Myocarditis is well known to be damaged. We've seen the death rate of athletes going through the roof. Most of them probably have had damage done to their heart and to their brain, the part that controls the heart. So they end up with both of these things not working right because you can't replace them. So there's permanent injury done with every shot that comes in from mRNA. That still gives a few hours where you can get an immune system learn to go kill your cells. But the mRNA they're making in these shots actually has been engineered so that it will last months. And we know that there are people who are producing the protein from that mRNA as long as 6 months after they have been given the shot. And that's only because we've not looked longer than 6 months. For all we know, it's being made years after you take these shots.
Well, now, the people that have created this, I mean, do they know that this is going to have bad effects on people long term?
Yes. This idea of getting things into you to get your cells to make things that you don't have genes for has been tried for some time. In the animal trials, it routinely killed animals. Just routinely happened. As a matter of fact, the initial SARS virus back from when SARS went around in, I think it was 2008, they made a viral vector vaccine. That's the Janssen & Janssen and AstraZeneca modality that would be able to make your cell make this foreign protein. And in the animal studies, in very short order, about a third of the animals would die because their immune system started attacking the tissue that was making it. It also tells your immune system to work the wrong way. When you have a virus infection, the virus infected cell tells the immune system, hey, I'm a virus. Here's how you need to fight me. But now you've got healthy cells making abnormal proteins. They aren't telling the immune system what to do. So the immune system sometimes kills the cell like it's a parasite. Sometimes it kills it like it's an extracellular bacteria. It uses all kinds of goofy tools on it and starts attacking other things because it's got bad instructions. And all of the data said this doesn't work. The gene therapies all failed. The mRNA or the viral vector DNA vaccines killed all the animals that used them. Very high side effect rates, usually developing very quickly in the trials. So yeah, there's nobody who can be, if you're working in this arena, you understand it can't work. We've not found a way that we can have a cell make a protein that's not in its genome and not have that cell be destroyed and not have the immune system react to it. And almost always it will react to it in a way that's not beneficial to the body. But this is kind of where government ties into this. And the problem is when we elect a legislator, at least nominally, he has to come down to all of us and we get to interview him and he can pass his job description, and that's fine. But in the executive branch, which is where all of this is being done, you don't get your job because you've passed a job interview with the entire population and you share the values of the population. Some lobbyist goes to the executive branch and says, this guy's smart. And he gets the job because we think he's smart. And it just may be that the guy's stupidity is profitable. And that guy gets a job. And he may be very good at ignoring the realities that the rest of us know.
So
Now,
Dan, this is developing into, in my opinion, in layman's terms, developing into another incidence of government overreach, of
absolutely
of a government program that's going to go bad now. And there's got to be a profit motive in this, because if you're hurting people in the long run, they're going to need medication and they're going to need help. Right? Am I on the right track here?
So, Dale, have you ever heard of the Bayh-Dole Act of 1984?
The Biden-Dole Act?
No, Bayh-Dole. Our own Senator Evan Bayh was the Bayh in the Bayh-Dole Act.
Okay, no.
Ever heard of that law?
I can't say that I have.
So in 1984, they made a change to patent law at the federal government that said if the federal government took our tax dollars and paid somebody to research, and that research led to something patentable, whoever was paid to do the research could own the patent for their personal profit. So the people at the NIH and the CDC and the FDA have been taking our tax dollars, paying for research, getting patents on the stuff they make, and then they lease the patents to the pharmaceutical industry to make money. So the guys at the NIH who have patents on this mRNA technology, by the way, Moderna licensed its code from the NIH, all right? They have a vested interest in making money on this.
Sure.
And of course, this is government overreach. I mean, if you've simply taken a human being and said, look, we're going to give you largesse to take the American taxpayer dollar and do something that will make you money. Gee, what could go wrong, right?
Right.
This is exactly why you're seeing this. And as part of this, they actually passed another law that said, if you call it a vaccine and it gets approved by the FDA, you're not allowed to sue the manufacturer, even if the vaccine hurts you.
Right, exactly.
So it's clearly government overreach. Governments are not good at complicated things. Medicine's pretty complicated.
I would
and as soon as when you get government involved in a complicated thing and concentrate the power, whether it's financial power or whether it's weaponry power, when you concentrate that power of a complicated thing, people start doing things that are very bad. And that is how our healthcare system, the national health system, all works.
To wrap it up, Dan, how would you tell viewers to approach this type of thing?
So the first thing I would tell them is recognize that mRNA technology has no hope of solving any kind of chronic disease. It might have some applicability for certain aggressive cancers, but it certainly can't be used to modify your immune system in a good way. And then realize that the reason this clearly inapplicable use has come about is because your government has gone out of control to areas it should not. As a matter of fact, in the Constitutional Convention of 1787, one of the delegates was a doctor by the name of Benjamin Rush, who actually argued that there should be a constitutional 11th Bill of Rights that prevented the federal government from ever having anything to do in healthcare. Because he knew that this was a complicated topic, it was an emotional topic, and that governments don't do well when they get on complicated emotional topics, and he wanted to prevent them from getting in it. And that's where a convention of states, I think, is so important, because we're not going to get these useful ignoramuses to give up the power and the money they've gotten now. Right. Not willingly. We need a convention of states, ladies and gentlemen. So mRNA, the most important thing to learn from these shots is they are a reason to believe we need to reform our government. And this isn't going to happen without a convention of states.
Dan, I think couldn't have been said better. So, Dan, thank you so much for your time today. This has been very informative, and I hope our viewers value this information. So, well, it was a little bit long, Ken, but
that's all right. He brings the hammer, doesn't he?
He does. I know he gets in the weeds there to most of us, but I don't know how. I
thought he did a good job of really presenting a couple of illustrations that kind of gave us the idea. You know, everything from antifreeze to down to how this stuff attacks everything inside your body. And at this point, I think we know at this point that it's, as you said, it's just not ending.
Well, and we've got a part 2 to this interview that will play at a future broadcast.
Look forward to that. Yep.
And it's very interesting because there's another side to this that that I think everyone should be aware of.
So stay tuned,
anyway,
folks.
Part 2. Stay tuned for part 2. All right, Kent. Let's let Marengo Mike come on and say a few words here. Okay.
Let's bring him in. Yep.
Welcome to another Marengo Mike's Corner. In today's corner, I wanted to talk about truth. Thibault said this about truth. The wise try to adjust themselves to the truth, while fools try to adjust the truth to themselves. And Thomas Sowell said, when you want to help people, you tell them the truth. When you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. And from the book, The Left Hand of Darkness, one voice speaking truth is a greater force than fleets and armies. You know, today people are fishing for the truth, but the lines are being cut so they don't reach the water of truth. We must keep the lines of truth flowing if we want to overcome the darkness that persists. And that'll do it for today's Marengo Mike's Corner. We'll see you all next month. Bye-bye now.
Boy, Marengo Mike gets philosophical on us here from time to time, huh?
Well, he kind of, I think he must have been talking to Dan before the program. He kind of was spot on as far as telling the truth is concerned. I think at one point he did talk about Dr. Fauci quite a bit. So,
okay, all right,
I'll leave it there.
Always good. All right, always good to hear from Marengo Mike. Well, let's move on, Ken, and now let's shift over to what's going on here in Indiana. And we're very, very happy to have as a special guest tonight, another special guest here in Indiana, Mr. John Holmes, a constitutional coach. So let's bring John on. John, you're muted right now, so unmute yourself when you come on here. So there's John.
Hello, John.
There you go. We're unmuted.
Okay, we're good shape now.
Hello, John. How are you, bud?
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
Glad to have you tonight, John. Well, as I mentioned, Mr. John Holmes is a constitutional coach, and we've been wanting to have a constitutional coach come on and tell us about our educate us as to what that's all about. But John, now you are a supporter of Convention of States, in addition to being a constitutional coach. How did kind of give us a brief summary of how you got involved, how you found Convention of States, how what's your COS story?
Well, I'll tell you, it's sort of blended in with part of what I've been doing and how I got started doing this. So I'll sort of start with that, but I'll go back just one comment. Back in my high school days, my favorite classes were math and government. And I had a government teacher that was a hard nut to crack. I mean, her motto was burn that midnight oil. And I think we all know what that means.
Really?
But much like everybody else young like that, get out of high school, go to college, get a job, get married. Your priorities are changed for you as well as you changing them. And you sort of lose track of some of the things that you really liked. And that applied to me as well as a lot of other people, I'm sure. But in 2018, I was here in Zionsville. We lived here a couple of years, 1 year, I think. And I saw in the little current newspaper that we have that a group of people were going to get together for about 6 weeks in a row on Saturdays in a bank down here. And they were going to talk about the Constitution from the Founding Fathers' perspective. I thought, well, that's going to be an interesting thing. I need to go to that. I went there, and about 10 or 12 people gathered there, and I found out that a lot of them were from the Constitution Party. I really didn't even know there was a Constitution Party. But these guys knew a lot about the Constitution. And as we got into the book on the Founding Fathers, I found out they knew a lot about the Founding Fathers too. And some of the things I've been started to hear, and you have heard them too, about the atheists and all this about our Founding Fathers and slave drivers and all that, just basically we're not coming out the same way when you really went back and looked at the history. And the one thing that sort of tipped me over to go look further was Section 8, Article 1. At that time, tariffs and sanctions were being administered by the president. But Section 8, Article 1 says that's Congress's job. So I did a little research to find out what's the president doing Congress's job in that respect. And I found out that Congress basically just abdicated that responsibility to the president. And I couldn't find any place in the Constitution where it said it was legal for one branch to give the other branch part of their job.
Yeah.
So that sort of said, go back and do more research. So over the next 6 months, I went back and I looked at the internet. I read books. I looked at publications. I took courses at Hillsdale College and Wall Builders and Patriot Academy, and I ran across COS. And I decided that all these things were valuable things, but, I didn't know them, and I was sure a lot of other people didn't know about them either. And I thought, I'm thinking, what can I do? What can I do to help? I thought, well, one of the things I think I can do is I think I can teach people about the Constitution. And so I started out to do that.
Yeah, good.
And as I researched some of this information, I went to Patriot Academy and looked at what they had to offer. And I took their online class, which they run regularly. And I thought it was pretty good. The combination of videos and conversation and a workbook, pretty good thing. Something you could do.
Yeah. I know that. Who is Rick Green? Is that the leader? Yeah. Patriot Academy. Rick Green and Mark Meckler are our CEO.
Right.
I know they're very close, and he's worked closely with Convention of States. Like I said, I know we have a number of constitutional coaches here in the state as well as across the country. Didn't you tell me you have a number, don't you, of how many constitutional coaches there are?
I don't know how many there are in Indiana. I tried to find that out, but I'm sure there are a number in Indiana. I don't know any of them. But in the country, when I started doing this in 2018, late 2018, there were under 500. And today, the last number I heard was 15,000.
Really?
Now,
Wow.
I'm sure that probably all those people are not coaching yet.
Yeah.
But I think the increase over the last 3-4 years is phenomenal in terms of the people that have been educated and are willing to take on that challenge. Because what I have found out is that there's just a need for this and a desire out there for people to understand the Constitution. I've got to realize, I keep telling myself, the kids coming through school today aren't getting it. Even though there's a federal law from 2004 that says you have to teach it, 90% of the high schools in the country are not teaching the Constitution. They're not teaching any civics at all. We know what they're teaching in its place, right?
Yeah. My grandkids that have gone through high school, I ask them about, do they teach you the Constitution? Do you have any courses or any exposure to the Constitution? Oh, it's part of the social studies program.
Yeah.
And I like you. I had in high school, I had a class that was specifically about government, specifically about the Constitution, the makeup of government, how it worked and everything, but you don't have that anymore.
No.
Yeah.
So a little bit about Patriot Academy. If you go on their website, www.patriotacademy.com.
Let's put that up. There you go.
Okay. You will find everything you need to basically become a constitutional coach. You'll find also a vast array across the country of either online classes that are going on now or personal classes that are being scheduled. You can actually schedule a class. You can go into a class. You can schedule your own class through there. And once you take the class, and it's basically called Constitution Alive. They have 6 week, 8 weeks, and I think 10 or 11 week versions of it. And it all has to do with how deep you want to go.
Kind of give us an idea what a class would look like. How would you how would that be organized, and how would you carry that out?
Well, I do it in person. I personally would rather, do it in person and have people interact with each other personally and not have any interruptions that people can get up and walk out of the room and maybe not come back. But typically the class, if you have 8 people or 10 people or 12 people in a class, and they have them, people have them in their homes, or they have them in churches or wherever they can find. And I'll tell you a little bit about what I've done. But the classes are a series of videotapes. The third guy that's in this equation, you mentioned Mark Meckler and Rick Green, but the third guy is David Barton from Wall Builders.
Oh, yes. He's very good. He's very good. I really enjoy him.
He is a constitutional historian. He has over 150,000 original documents from this era. And one of the things that we keep going back to is don't listen to the interpretation or somebody telling you about the founders. You can go find out what happened at the Constitutional Convention. You can find out all you want to. They kept journals. They kept records. David Barton has a lot of those. And so the history, the real history is there. And so Rick and Dave start out talking about whatever the subject matter of the Constitution is. They spend 10, 15 minutes doing that. And then Rick takes you into Constitution Hall, Independence Hall, and presents the detail of the specific areas of the Constitution that you're studying that night. And so there's a series of classes, if you will, that go on relative to those kind of things. And the biblical base of the Constitution is brought out. And then they've come out within the last 2 years with a version of that called biblical citizenship.
Yes, I've heard about that.
Yeah, both of these
our Constitution was very, very much based on the Bible.
Oh, yeah. It was by far the most referenced document or the most referenced person, to build the foundation of the Constitution.
Right.
And so it is biblically based. And
I took that course. It was a great course. Rick does a good job in that.
Yeah, he does. He really does.
You took that course, Ken? Yeah, I did. You did? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Well, my involvement then, once I got this done, it's mid 2019 when I really started to teach classes. So I've taught probably 10 or 12 Constitution Alive classes. And there's significance in that because people today, the young kids say, if they know anything about the Constitution, they're talking about the living Constitution. Their interpretation of that is the Constitution's 240 years, 50 years old. It's outdated, and we need something that's living, that's today. And I sort of counter that with them and say, well, 250 years, it's been good to us. And what do you want to do? Throw it out and start over? And what do you start with? And where do you go from?
Right.
Yeah, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't good, right, John?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Be here.
So I've taught these classes in churches. I've taught them I teach in the Historic Society in Sheridan, which is my hometown in central Indiana. I've taught them in churches in Kokomo and Zionsville and Noblesville and in Sheridan. I taught 3 biblical citizenship classes. And then about a year ago, I got approached from a homeschool combine, which is a 2-day-a-week thing where all the kids get together for classes that their parents don't feel comfortable in teaching them at home. They come together and we go in as volunteer tutors to teach these classes. And so I told them, I would come in and teach government to those students. Of course, that's mainly the Constitution. And so I've been doing that. I've taught 2 classes, and I'm getting ready to go back in August and teach another class in government and the Constitution.
Well, that's great. I'm glad. That's great. That's great. I tell you, we need more of this. We sure do. So keep up the good job, John. How can people get a hold of you? if they want to schedule a class?
Yeah, let me tell you one more example if I've got a few minutes here, a couple minutes here. One of the programs that the Patriot Academy has for a constitutional coach now, they just started up about a little over a year ago, is called the mentoring program. So this allows somebody that's become a new constitutional coach who feels a little bit uneasy about how do you get started and how do you approach this and all that, to link up with somebody like me that has been doing this for a while. Well, I volunteered to be a mentor. I linked up with, they linked me up with a guy that had just retired in Ohio, and he and his wife wanted to start a class in their church. And he had approached his pastor, and his pastor said, "Oh, we can't really get into that." And I said, "Well, that doesn't surprise me, but I think you got to have a little patience and work with him, and give him time to gel on this thing." Well, he called me in March this year, a year later. He said, "Guess what? We're going to start our class." And they started their class, and they had between 40 and 50 people in their class.
Wow.
And they invited me to sit in on their last class, the sort of the summary of the course. And their pastor was there, and he talked, and I got a chance to say a few words. And I'm pretty confident that they understand and that they will probably be running more classes. And that's what it's all about. It's education. Because what I found is that I think our main problem has been is we have been, as a country, the citizens, too apathetic, thinking we'll put people in these jobs in the government and they'll do what they're supposed to do without any interference, and we forget about them.
Yeah.
And because we're apathetic, we don't know what they're doing, and we don't know what the Constitution says. So we become very ignorant over the last 200 years.
Yeah.
And things have happened that shouldn't have happened. And we've got to somehow work hard to undo that. And Convention of States is a thing that I think is absolutely essential to keep fighting for here.
Yeah.
It's a hard fight, but even if it doesn't happen, every time we take a step forward, they know we're coming. They know that they're not going to take away all the things that they've put together for themselves. So they're not going to amend the Constitution in our favor. And we become somewhat of a force to reckon with in terms of going back to the Constitution.
Okay, well, folks, if you want to talk to John about arranging a class or mentoring or whatever, contact him at 765-480-4183.
That's correct.
So he'll be glad to talk to you, I'm sure. John, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Talking
John,
about constitutional codes. Have a good night.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was very good, Ken. I'm really glad we finally got a gentleman on, or anyone on, like John. So that was
especially one that has that much experience. Yeah, I mean that's a lot. That's a lot of experience in the constitutional coaching world, and I agree. We need more. We need more Johns out there.
I like that mentoring program. Yeah. All right. Let's. I promised our new contributor, our state director, and so let's bring him on. And I have a little promo here that we'll play. All right, there's Dale's promo, and we'll get that attached to his videos in the future here. But here's Dale Tipton, our new state director, with his first contribution.
Hello, this is Dale Tipton. I'm the state director with Convention of States here in Indiana. But also today I am speaking as a former special agent with the FBI, serving 24 years in the offices located in Chicago, Illinois, and Merrillville, Indiana. I'd like to address a couple of comments about the John Durham investigation and his 300-page report, which he has released. And as you all know, his basic task was to examine the results of the Robert Mueller investigation concerning Russiagate or Russia collusion with President Trump or the Trump campaign. Basically, the Mueller investigation did not find any results of collusion. And the Durham investigation found out that, in fact, not only were there no results found, that, in fact, the investigation probably never should have been brought to begin with, that the probable cause was flimsy, that the information which was proven to come from opposition research from the Hillary Clinton campaign really let the world know that there was nothing to it. You know, it was bought and paid for by the Clinton campaign. It was not vetted. It was not backed up by any other sources, and the FBI chose to take it and run with it. That was a mistake. But why did that happen? People in power believed that Donald Trump would be a bad president, and once he became president, they really made a thorough attempt to discredit him and try to throw him out of office through whatever means they could. This is the emergence of political power, power within the media, power within major corporations that targeted first an American citizen, a presidential candidate, a president, and then once again a citizen. This was wrong. There were similar investigations involving the Clinton campaign that Mr. Durham concluded were handled completely differently. They weren't looked at sincerely, and there was no effort to push that investigation, the opposite case in the Trump investigation. We are living in a world currently where our institutions that we loved and believed in have been corrupted by political power. This includes the FBI, the IRS, the CIA, and other alphabet agencies of the federal government. We no longer live in a time where individual citizens' rights are paramount. We cannot let this stand under our watch of citizens of the United States of America. Thank you for your time.
Well, he kicked off a good one there, Dale. You're muted. He certainly came about and kicked off his first one with a lot of truisms and unfortunately sad truisms for our.
Yes,
our
he did. Yes, yeah. And he does a part 2 on this, so we'll have him on again, and he's also given us some clips on some other topics that of interest to him, like Bud Light. So there's going to be he's got some interesting comments coming up.
I can't wait now.
Yep. Well, Ken, I think it's time to wrap things up here. Let's talk about what's coming up. Okay. And on our next broadcast, which will be 1 week from tonight on June 19th, we're going to have Debbie Stewart coming on. And Debbie, in addition to being our constitutional expert, we've designated her as the World Health Organization expert, because that seems to be.
That's another one of those hot topics. Yep. I think we're going to, we'll light a few fires on that one too.
And she's very interested in that. So she's already told me that that's what she wants to talk about next week when she comes on. So we'll have Debbie.
You're giving her a whole couple of weeks to prepare for this. We're in trouble, Dale.
I know we could be. And we'll have part 2 of my interview with Dan Stock on the mRNA vaccine. And we're going to have our new state grassroots coordinator, Susan Gervais, is going to come on. And Susan was a region captain, and she's been promoted to the state grassroots coordinator. So we'll talk about what Susan has planned for that position and reintroduce her to everyone. So got a good lineup scheduled for next week, June 19th, same time, same place. So also then the following week, which will be the 4th Monday that we devote to roundtable format, that'll be the roundtable on June 26th. we haven't got a topic determined quite yet, but we've got some good ones that we're kicking around. So as soon as we select one, you got a particular topic you think we should talk about, Ken?
Wow, Dale. You know, I think at this point, you know, we don't know how long this whole process is going to take, but this whole justice thing has just gotten out of hand, and I think
it is, isn't it?
I know there's a lot of different theories as to how this can go, and you know, he's got a judge that obviously he appointed and all this and that, but my word, you know, it's to me, it's I don't know how we can avoid not getting back into that hornet's nest.
We'll see what we're going to talk about. We'll be hashing that out this week. So,
yep.
Well, let's close on. Let's make sure everyone knows how to get in contact with us. If you got any comments or questions about our live stream that you weren't able to register tonight, send us an email at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Any comments or questions from any of our viewers this evening that we need to look at?
No, well, there's been some comments, and we have two comments. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of show it because we talked a little bit about it here just a second ago.
Okay.
Susan Lyon says we should talk about the DOJ.
I knew Susan. I knew she would.
And Connie Edgen, she echoed that. So there's already 2 votes in the canister for DOJ. So
okay, well we got to get some thought as to how we're going to handle that, folks. We have to be very careful. Being Convention of States, we have to be very careful on how we present these things. So
I just think at this point, looking at I don't know whether COS has a document expert or somebody that can really get into the difference between you know, a presidential document area, or you know, the other approach that seems to be a little bit of in the gaslighting area. You know, as far as making the indictment sound more like a combination of dealing with giving away nuclear secret codes and all this other stuff. I don't know. I think if we have somebody who can talk a little bit about that, that would be great. But I know what you're saying. We have to be careful, you know, how it's presented from a Convention of States standpoint.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll kick that around, folks. We'll kick that around this week. We've got this week is designated as the week where we focus on determining what our topic's going to be. So we'll do it. Once again, if you got any suggestions on a topic, any more comments about a topic, send it to us. Raise your voice, COS@gmail.com. All right. That's it for tonight, Ken. And once again, thank you for joining in. By the way, this was live stream number 201. I forgot to mention that early on.
I was wondering whether you're going to bring that up. I forgot all about it.
This was number 201 and number 67 for you, Ken. So,
wow, there you go.
There we go. I wanted
all right,
to get
Dale.
that in. All right. Good night, everybody. Have a good one.
Yep.